You are listening to season 1, episode 5 of Megan's Not a Parent But. And today I will be talking through the difference between discipline and punishment. So good. Hope you enjoy. Hey friends, welcome to Megan's Not a Parent But, the podcast hosted by me, Megan. And I'm a parenting coach with almost 20 years experience helping parents raise their children, especially the strong-willed ones. I have been described as the perfect blend of Mary Poppins meets Nanny 911, and I love to help parents drink hot coffee, stop yelling, and learn how to truly enjoy raising their strong-willed children. My goal is by sharing my views, my beliefs, and my tips that I can help empower you to parent more confidently in removing fear-based punishments and learning how to lean into the kind and firm approach of parenting with kindness. So glad to have you here. If you love what you hear, make sure to let me know by taking a screenshot and sharing on Instagram. My handle is Be Kind Coaching, and I love a tag. I like to say that it's my love language, and I want to connect to you. I want to know, what parts did you like? What parts resonate with you? What parts do you feel like everybody needs to hear? I want to know that, so let me know. So make sure to hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. All right, without further delay, let's get into today's episode. All right, before we get started today and kind of dig deep into this, I want to set this concept up. And this concept was taught to me by a woman named Tamar Jacobson at a NACE conference, which is a conference for early childhood educators from around the country. Each year they have a big conference. And back in 2011, I went to the conference that was hosted in Washington, D.C. It was so fun. We stayed in the hotel that the Pittsburgh Penguins were in, and I actually walked down the hallway from Sidney Crosby, which my husband, Jason, is a huge Caps fan. And so, of course, when I'm walking through it, I couldn't help. I say, "Hey, are you Sidney Crosby?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Go Caps." And I thought, like, now looking back, I was like, dude, what a dick move. But like, at the time it was kind of funny. Oh, how we grow. Anyways, I was sitting in this conference and it was so good. And Tamar Jacobson's, I went to it by myself. Everybody else was going to like how to incorporate better toys or outdoor spaces for preschool. And the title of her talk was Learn How to Control Your Anger. And I thought, oh yeah, this is me. I need to go to this because, yep, I do feel angry around children often. And I want to know more about this. And so here I was sitting front row. I was like, I got there early. I was at a table all by myself and I was in the front row. And there was a quote that was on the screen, and it was so powerful. And as I read it, I was just like, my eyes got bigger and I was like, oh my God, who is this woman? And I need to know more about it. And the quote that was written on the board was a quote by Haim Ganot. This quote was a quote from his book, Teacher and Child, a book for parents and teachers. And it literally, like, as I'm rereading it, getting emotional, thinking about it, because it's something that's so powerful. I need to calm down. I feel this quote so deeply in my bones. So let me see if I can get through it. I have come to the frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element. It's my personal approach that creates the climate. It's my daily mood that makes the weather. I possess tremendous power to make a life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or humor, hurt or heal. It is in all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis is escalated or de-escalated and a person humanized or dehumanized. If we treat people as they are, we make them worse. If we treat people as they ought to be, we help them become what they are capable of becoming. whew, I made it. It's such a good quote. And that was the quote that she had up and center right on the board. And I was just like locked in. I took a picture of it on my phone. I was just so like, what? Like, I need to know this. And so she came up, and I had never heard of her before, but instantly she got me hooked. And she started her presentation with a question that I'm going to ask you now. And it is, when you were a child, how were you disciplined? She asked us to take out a piece of paper, and she asked us to write down how we were disciplined as children. And then when she gave us a little bit of time to think about it, and then when a couple minutes had passed, she asked if anybody would want to share it. And what happened was people started raising their hand, and they started saying things like, I was yelled at, restrictions. I had things taken away from me. I had toys thrown out. I was spanked. I had the wooden spoon. I had the belt. And someone even said that they had been burned with cigarettes. They had been locked out of the house. They had gotten their car taken away. They had gotten their keys taken away. They had gotten, every privilege taken away. They weren't able to talk on the phone. They weren't able to go see their friends. Birthday parties had been taken away. And it really just, like, everyone was just so open because she provided the space to this question. And after everybody shared, she simply said, what if I were to tell you that's not discipline at all? And then I was like, go on, because on my list was like spanked, hit with a belt, restriction, having things taken away, having privileges taken away, yelled at, screamed at, humiliated, words, like everything. And she said, those are all punishments. And the word punish means to inflict pain, to try to correct. And when we look at the word discipline, it actually stems from the root word of disciple, which means to teach. And instantly it was like, there are few moments in my life that just become these definitive moments where a certain chapter is closed and a new one is opened. And this was certainly one of those moments where I was just like, oh my gosh, I think in the course of her talk, which was about an hour long, I took probably 20 pages of notes, and I was just like, I get it now. I suddenly get it. And knowing that distinction and just having that paradigm radically shifted for me was just such a game changer, that's what I want to talk about today. And kind of dig into a little bit, I won't go super deep, but dig into a little bit of how this word discipline has become synonymous with punishment. And kind of when we put that on our 25-year trajectory, how that's not doing anything to help us reach our goals of having a better, well family, a close, connected, thriving, kind, having a family that we enjoy being around. Because when we don't know the difference and we don't see the difference in those words, that outcome, taken out 25 years can erode our family and lead us into divorce and estrangement and family fracture and resentment and just all of these things that we just know so much. There's so much research coming out saying that is like the silent killer of our society. So I just think it's so important to make that distinction. And so whenever you see the word discipline on my page in this podcast, it's going to kind of debunking this myth, starting to debunk and kind of educate, what does it mean to discipline, and what does that encompass? And the analogy that I like to use is the thought that this is a toolbox. And I'm sure you've heard this before. Actually, parents have come to me saying, I just need more tools. I don't know what to do. I just scream and then they do it, but it doesn't feel good to me. I just need more tools to do. So I like to think of it as a toolbox. And when I think of punishment, I think of the hammer. I think of like the big judge gavel coming down. Like this is like a heavy, hard, nails things in, like sears these things in your brain. That's the hammer. And sure, there's times where that part needs to come out, parts where your child's life is endangered or something is happening and you need to get through to them, and you need to get through them quick and now to help protect them. But that's not getting on their shoes. That's not eating their dinner. That's not going to sleep. That's not taking a bath. Those are things where discipline, or to teach them and to work with them and to understand them and to kind of gain some new tools to teach them, that's where that comes into play. Those moments where the hammer is not necessary. Sure, the hammer can get the job done in the short term, but it's setting you up for long-term just guilt and resentment and anger and frustration and rebellion. And I really want to work to help you eliminate those. So I like to think of, brain break moment. I know I can go way deep and I can get there quickly. So let's take a little pause, a little moment to take a deep breath in and out. And take a moment to let you know that this episode is sponsored by me, Megan, and it is brought to you by my amazing parenting program vault. You can find it at my website at bekindcoaching.com. And the Parenting Vault is chock full of all of my programs and resources to help you gain the confidence, the connection, and the community that you're looking for in helping you raise your kind family. Make sure to go and check it out. And inside you can find my free parenting style quiz called How Kind Is Your Family? So it's 7 easy questions. You can go and take it and find out, are you the too kind parent, the too firm parent, or the kind and firm parent? Just make sure to download the guide so that you can get all of the assets and the liabilities delivered right to your inbox. All right, without further ado, let's take one more deep breath and get back to it. In, out. Let's go. What are all the other tools that we need? We need tools of compassion, and we need tools of agreements, and we need tools that help level and connect us, and tools that scaffold and reinforce us, and tools of follow through, and tools of negotiations, and ways to just communicate and really just genuinely start to grow together as a family, so that it's not the parents having power over children and children feeling like they have to rebel against the authority, that there's true trust. I hear it time and time again. I, want my children to call me when they make a mistake or when they're in a really hard time or a hard situation. I would hope that they would call me and let me know so that I could help them. But when you think about that methodology now, there are times all throughout the day that they're in that situation and they come to you and they ask for help and they get the hammer back. And so what that is communicating is, you can't trust me with those things because they're not things that I deem worthy to help, to teach, to, use my tools of my other tools. It's just this quick hammer. And I think in the long run, if you were to ask a carpenter, how do you build a house? He would say so many different tools. There's so many different members on the team, and there's so many different, drafts that have to be made. And there's so much education and schooling and practice that goes into it. It's not just simply the hammer. And so I would like to empower you to think about this and how it applies in your life. Think about how this applies in your own marriage, in your family, in your relationship between you and your family, and in your parents. And where would you like to see discipline come in a little bit more and have a little bit less punishment? There's a common framework in positive discipline where they say that there's 4 R's of punishment. And those 4 R's are so true. They knock the wind out of me, just like that quote does. And the first R is rebellion. When you feel punished, a possible outcome is rebellion, to think, I'm going to do it anyways. Think about teenage. Oh my gosh, how many lines do we say oh, teenager, or oh, what are they going to be like as a teenager? They're going to be exactly what you've set them up to be and what you've set your relationship up to be. And if it's through punishment, it might include rebellion. I remember back as a child, I remember so clearly my mom said, you may not drive with your friend Patty. You can't drive with her. And for Patty's 16th birthday, she got a fire red Mustang. And guess who started driving with her? Me. And we would drive fast. And then when I would get dropped off, I would have Patty drop me off 2 houses down, and I would walk up to my own house and I would say, Patty's dad dropped us off. My parents had no idea. To them, they thought, okay, good. Thank you for listening to us. Patty's dad. And they never like checked in on that. There was no like follow up. There was no accountability there. They just believed me. And I learned like, hey, I can dart the system and I can rebel against the system in this way because I could avoid the punishment. I could avoid the lecture. I could avoid, you know, the restriction of it. And it felt fun to me. I felt so powerful. I remember we went on the Prince William Parkway and we drove like probably 95, going 95 on the Prince William Parkway topless at 16. We were like free and unabashed. And I think now back, like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that we didn't get into an accident or get hurt. And I'm so glad that we never got a ticket or something where, you know, we would have been like, oh shit, like who do we call? We would have no idea because our own relationship with our parents was so fractured. So I think of that as the intention of why, you know, why to focus more on discipline and not on punishment. The second R is resentment. And that is this feeling of this is not fair. And yeah, I would say that all the time. Like, you just don't get me. This isn't fair. You don't understand. Why am I getting punished? This isn't even how it's supposed to be. And I would start to, you know, make up an excuse. Well, this story. And I could get my parents wrapped up into a story to see my side of it. And I would say just about anything to get out again of the punishment. I remember when I was also in high school, where the majority of my stories come from, in this episode. In high school, I went to Europe and we were on this trip and we had to sign so many papers. Oh my gosh, so many papers saying that we weren't going to drink. Because at the time we were all underage and we were going over still as citizens of the United States, obviously, but under like as this ambassador program, we weren't allowed to drink. If we were caught drinking, then it would be, you know, punished by being sent home. And of course we drank. Of course we started like on day 2 sneaking out. And it was in Italy and we got caught drinking. And I remember the person who set off the chain of reaction. I mean, they like spun this wild story. And of course there was like, I don't know, 10 of us who got caught and we all had to say the same story. And it all resulted in like that this wasn't fair, that this wasn't supposed to be it. And I remember we had to write an apology letter. And oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that until just now. I had to write this apology note. And as I wrote it, the leader told me that it wasn't good enough and I had to like go deeper and get more details. And I remember just thinking like, what? Like, no. And I think I just made up all the details on the page. So I was like, this isn't, no, you're not going to do this. And so that's like resentment when you start to hang on to like this idea of like, that's not fair, like this sense of injustice. The third R of punishment is retreat. And retreat on the surface seems like a lesser of them, you know, not as bad as rebellion or resentment, but retreat can be equally as dangerous. And retreat means that you start to just fade into the background, where when mistakes happen, you just kind of do a slow fade out, you know, thinking like, if I just stay quiet about this, I won't get caught. I used to do this in school all the time. When a teacher would call on me, you know, I would just say, I don't know, or I don't care, or, you know, I'm not prepared. I would just start to fade into the background to avoid the humiliation that I felt going up in front of the classroom. I just started to become a wallflower. And that's the sense of retreat, this idea that gets written into your head that, you know, don't show up or don't get caught. This is where lying comes in. Lying is kind of a retreat tactic. And it starts to give you the identity that you're bad. You start thinking, I'm bad. I'm just a bad kid. And if I can just fade and nobody noticed, then I can, again, avoid the punishment. And the last R is revenge. And revenge is often one of the most painful to go through. And it's this sense that hurt people hurt people. And when we feel pain from the punishment, we in turn become hurt and go to hurt back. And this showed up for me when I was 22 and called my mom up and said, hey, I can't do this relationship anymore. That was like, looking back now, that was revenge. I felt so hurt by her. And she then felt so hurt by me. So we just went into like this standoff. And I see revenge get played off with children as young as, 15 months. As soon as you say no to them or don't go through with what they want, a tantrum, that's revenge. Screaming, that's revenge. Hitting, that's revenge. Starting to see that like whenever the sense of like wrong or punishment or hurt comes into play, learning these tools of revenge. And so learning what to do instead of, to avoid rebellion, resentment, retreat, and revenge. That's what I help parents do. I want to alleviate all that pain. I want to heal that pain and give you different tools rather than tools of fear and tools of compliance, to help build your family through discipline, through teaching, through accountability, through the clear method. That's why I set it up as it is. The first is connection. And without connection, you can't set limits. And without limits, you can't empower a choice. And without empowering choices, you can't hold anyone accountable. And probably you're not going to recover afterwards because everybody's just blown up and gone to their separate corners. Really focusing in on teaching, how can you connect? How can you foster healthy limits and boundaries? How can you empower choice? How can you hold people accountable to those choices and then follow everything up with recovery and reconnection? It's so powerful. And I've seen things go from dark to light so quickly. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed that quote, and just so good. So if you have any thoughts or anything you want to share, please feel free, like I say every episode, to hit me up in my DMs at Be Kind Coaching. I can't wait to hear what your takeaway was. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye, friends. All right, friends, you have been listening to Megan's Not a Parent, But, the podcast for parents raising the strong-willed. I am so thankful that you have taken a little bit of time out of your busy day to settle in and have a chit chat with me. It's literally my favorite thing to talk about. I could talk about it all the time. So that's why I started this podcast. So thank you so much. If you found value in this podcast, please, please, please do me a favor and take a screenshot and share it with me. You can share it on Instagram. You can share it on Facebook. Just make sure to tag me so that I can see it. Like I said, my love language in episode 1, my love language is gifts of quality time, and a tag on social media or a review of this podcast or any sort of interaction and engagement, man, you're filling my love bucket. So thank you so much. I can't wait to chat and connect to you, and see you next time. Bye, friends.